Morning, happy Monday. Jackie Broman here from TBA Law, and I'm coming to you with our Monday morning short snippet of legal information. So all these videos, although they're live initially, are saved onto the page so you can go back in the video section and watch anything that is relevant for you. A whole lot of the videos I've done have been on estate planning and managing deceased estates because that's my specialty. But TBA Law also does a lot of property work, and so I've done a series on buying and selling land, on living with neighbours and looking at fences, drainage, and other neighbourhood disputes. And then I've done a short series on leasing as well. Now I'm moving on to a short series on business structures. So we certainly help small business with their structuring, particularly because it is a part of estate planning in a lot of ways. It's a part of protection of your assets, certainly in terms of family trusts, but for families who run small businesses, making sure they're running the business in the right entity is really important from an estate planning point of view, as well as many other factors. So what I'm doing is going through a comparison sheet, which I do have available if you wanted to download it on the website. So it's a comparison of business entities, and none of these business entities are any worse or better than any others. The pros and cons depend on your situation. So today I'm going to talk about being a sole trader and the pros and cons of that. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking about partnerships, companies, and trusts. All right. So the pros and cons also depend a lot on what your objectives are. Now, a lot of people start out wanting something very simple as an objective, and simple from a tax perspective as well. And that is a sole trader through and through. So from an income tax perspective, it's really easy. As an individual, you would just then get an ABN, and whatever you earned is in your personal tax return. In terms of the tax rate that you pay, unfortunately, then you're stuck in the individual tax brackets. So if you end up earning a couple of $100,000 in your business, you're obviously paying a lot more tax than you would in another entity. So realistically, a sole trader is really good for someone starting out, subcontractors and tradies that can control their income and expenses to keep their income on the lower side. So then from a capital gains perspective, if you were a sole trader owning assets, from a capital gains perspective, you've got one of the best ratings in terms of capital gains, because you, as an individual, you still get the 50% discount on capital gain on the sale of an asset after you've owned it for 12 months. Now, that is probably not what people are thinking about when they start a business. So if they start as a sole trader, they might then progress to another entity to get other benefits that are then important to them, which might be something like capital gains. But for a sole trader, usually that's not what's important. From an asset protection perspective, which is what I do a lot of with estate planning, a sole trader is not good. Okay, so if your business is chugging along well and growing and you're getting assets, that's the time when you want to think about changing the structure, because all the assets are in your own name as a sole trader, as are liabilities, and therefore anything that you own in your personal capacity, like your house, can be at risk. So there's very little asset protection being a sole trader. So that is a downside. But then again, if you don't have assets to protect because you're still starting out, sole trader's fine. So again, it depends on your objectives and your situation in life. From a control and succession point of view, again, being a sole trader is not good. So if this is your objective, being able to pass on an asset, being the business that you create, then the sole trader structure is something that you need to change well and truly before you look at selling the business or transferring it on to someone else to run. And certainly if you passed away as a sole trader, there's really no business that your family can benefit from. They'll benefit from the plant and equipment that you might own as a business owner, but the business dies with you if you're a sole trader. So again, like I'm talking about, the pros and cons depend on your objectives and what stage of business you're in. Sole trader is a great start out position, but once your business gets to a certain size, you certainly have different objectives and you want to be thinking about those. And so control and succession is not something that a sole trader is any good for. The setup of a business and running costs, it's the easiest as a sole trader. So 10 out of 10 for low setup fees and running costs. Setup fees are essentially apply for an ABN and a business name. An ABN's free, a business name costs $26 or something like that for the first year. So that's why sole trader entity is the best way to get started in a business. But again, you have to remember that as the business grows, you need to be thinking about changing that structure, because you don't want to be stuck as a sole trader 5 years down the track once your business is 5 times the size. So there's no compulsory payment of super to yourself as a sole trader. There's no workers' compensation that you have to pay for yourself. And there's no payroll tax that you need to worry about as a sole trader. So all of these things make it really easy. But again, it depends on what stage you're in. Flexibility is very low, very limited when you're a sole trader because the business is you. It's how you manage your own flexibility. There's no flexibility as to the payment of income because it's all you. You can't split the income like you would through a trust or between directors of a company. So you lose some of that flexibility there. You lose flexibility in terms of control because it's just you. There's nothing you can do about that. So from that perspective, again, it all comes down to what stage you're at in business as to what your objectives are and which structure is best for you. So again, pros and cons of a sole trader. Great for really small micro business, great for startup. Not great once your income gets over a certain level because you're paying it at marginal rates. Not great for asset protection at all, and not great for control and succession. So if those things aren't important to you yet, start as a sole trader and then later on get a company, move the business into a company or a trust, something along those lines. So there you go. Really quick and simple. Is a sole trader suitable for me? Go through those things and work out if you're starting out a business, or if you're in a small business now and you're still a sole trader, whether it's still appropriate for you or not. So I will save this video onto the page so you can go back and have a look at the pros and cons of being a small business trading as a sole trader. Next week I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of operating a business in a partnership. So the next few videos in this series are going to be the pros and cons of various business structures. And again, I'll be here every Monday morning, 10 o'clock, to go through these aspects of business for you. And if they're of interest to yourself or anyone that you're aware of, they're saved in the videos page so you can go back and have a look at them or tag anyone's name in them that's relevant for them. So for now, that's me over and out. I hope that's useful for you and I really hope you have a great week. See you next Monday.